Hello and welcome to the 909 podcast. It is episode 306 and this episode is our proper return to 2026, as in it's the first regular episode of the year. It is myself, Niall, and I'm joined by Vanessa Roulston Mooney. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So this is the best of the month episode. Typically what we do is talk about music that we liked of the month of January. I have been enjoying quite a lot of albums this month, and I was saying to you just before we started, at the moment I'm really enjoying just focusing my listening on albums. I went through a period at the end of the year where I kind of got disillusioned with the likes of Spotify for obvious reasons last year. You know, there's many reasons why we shouldn't be on Spotify anymore, and we've literally have talked about this on this podcast before, but I think it finally was given the push when I started to really properly use the alternative that I said to myself I think I signed up to Qobuz last March or something like that, and it takes a while to change your habits, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to finally go. And then with all the news that came out about Spotify last year, I had to give myself a kick up the arse and be like, all right, it's time to get off this hellscape. And I was just feeling like Spotify as well, regardless of all the issues that are going on with it, there's all of this other stuff that was happening, which is all about, you know, how everything was just about playlists. And me personally, I was kind of getting to the point now where there's so much music coming my way and I'm like, I'm finding it hard to enjoy it in the same way or like listen to it all. And this is perennially, Vanessa, my problem. I have so many people emailing me and sending me music that I could and at this point I just can't listen to it anymore. All of it in a timely manner. So kind of refocusing on albums is something that I have really enjoyed in the last 4 or 5 months. And obviously the end of year stuff is something that I really enjoy. But yeah, speaking of end of year stuff, you have a Substack, which is...
Yes, it's just my name. Yeah, it's just Vanessa Roulston Mooney .substack.
Velvet Tones, is that right? Yeah,
that
Velvet
too.
Tones. So you have done your favorite albums of 2025 as well, so you can read that there.
Yeah.
So I think I'm sure that one of those records that you featured is gonna get a mention. You wrote a piece for us for 909 in November through Foggy Notions, an interview with these New Puritans, which is a really great read that was published in November. So go back and read that. A good chat with that band. They were one of your albums of the year last year. And I guess by way of introduction, if you would like, just maybe briefly talk about some of the stuff that you were enjoying last year and some of the things that you saw. Any great gigs or anything, any albums or listen to?
I mean, last year was kind of similar to yourself, Niall. Like, I kind of fallen out of love with music a little bit. I kind of moved away from the albums and then kind of started, once I got more into it and starting to find stuff I really liked again, that wasn't so algorithm driven, more recommendation based and more finding stuff for myself, I started to write about it. So the end of year list was probably the first time in a few years where I'd actually put effort into thinking about what my favorites were. So it was really good fun to sort of go out blindly and maybe see acts I actually hadn't listened to and catch them live instead of listening to them and knowing everything about them, which is kind of something I had been doing a bit too much of. So yeah, there's some really good new stuff out last year. I mean, Maria Somerville was one of my favorites. The Smurrs album was one of my favorites. So really looking forward to seeing them now in the next few weeks, in the next few months. Yeah, a few
of those playing here in the next few months. Obviously, Maria Somerville's playing next week, and then Smurrs in March or April or so, isn't it?
April, I think. April.
Yeah. So Velvet Tones is the Substack if you want to read Vanessa's work as well. But we're going to talk about albums that we liked in January. And actually, we'll start with Maria Somerville because why not? You just mentioned her there. So Luster was the album that came out last year. The Connemara artist definitely got a lot of notices in terms of that album internationally. Obviously, it's released on 4AD, so she's very much an international artist. But what did you like about Luster? And then we're going to just talk about the remixes that came out this month.
Yeah, so Luster, I think it's very enchanting and it's sort of mystical. And I think obviously knowing that she comes from Connemara and I'm from Donegal, so I can kind of recognize the sort of barren landscapes and the countryside. And I just feel like the way it's crafted and the way it's shaped, it just truly reflects that sort of mystical allure of Irish folklore and spirituality and the beauty of the countryside. And it's just a very comforting piece of work. It's nearly nostalgic in ways, and it kind of takes you back to being a child and running around outside. And then the remixes, which just came out, I think just completely extend the life of the album, and it doesn't lose the essence of what it is underneath everything. It still remains completely ethereal, but it just gets taken to another dimension by some of the contributors. And it's actually it's a fun piece of work to go back and compare the two.
The remixes that you can hear are, there's various kind of vibes going on. Seafield, the Warp Records duo, kick it off. But you have picked out two in particular you'd like to spotlight. So let's talk about those ones.
Yeah, so Projections is probably one of my favorite songs on the lister anyway. And Cole, who is an artist I think she's from New York. She does a lot of work with Chanel beads, and she also has her own solo stuff. She has taken Projections and kind of transformed it into something of her own. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say brutal, because it's not brutal, but it's maybe less delicate than Maria's version is. And it just turns it, I don't know, it really just turns it into, it takes it up another level. If it was something that was to exist like physically, it'd be delicate. Like I'd be afraid I would snap it. Yeah, so Maria Somerville, she's had Cole on her NTS show as well. So even from listening to that in the mornings and knowing what sort of music is played, you can really hear the influences kind of coming out through it. And yeah, it really just takes the song to a whole other level with higher dream state.
Okay, well, let's have a listen to a bit of that. The Call remix of Projections. You can kind of hear the original song coming in there as well. Is Maria still doing her NTS show? I'm an occasional NTS listener. She does, you know?
Yeah, no, she does. I have the radio set to wake me up in the mornings as my alarm.
I have tried that.
I am able to catch it some mornings.
NTS I find is a little bit too slow for me in the morning, especially with a 2-year-old running around. It just doesn't fit the vibe anymore. So sometimes I'm like, I wish it's either like really banging or like too slow, too languid. I was like, I need to wake up a little bit more on this. You know what I mean?
You can be caught out a little bit though. The other morning, I think it was brash trumpets at about 6 a.m. It was some replay of a show that I'd done months ago, which completely took me out of my own dream state. So,
and what about the other remix you picked off this one?
Yeah, so I chose the remix of Violet by Yawa Nailgun. So this is really interesting because it is a completely different vibe to what Somerville's music is. It's really, if you've listened to 45 Pounds, Yawa's album, it's very identifiable in this like brashy, snary percussion. And that is taken and completely meshed in on top of Maria Somerville's kind of breathy vocals and those sort of soft soundscapes that she has. So you can still hear all the environmental noises coming through. You can still hear like the uilleann pipes that are featured coming through. But it's that sort of really snappy, snary, really brash like percussion just uses that as an anchor point, and it just completely turns it up a completely different notch, and it's nearly addictive actually.
Okay, well Violet was one of my favourite tracks off the original album, so let's have a listen to the remix. Still has that kind of stereo lab vibe to it, I think, as well. That I love that.
Yeah, it doesn't lose anything really at all. It kind of just, I don't know, turns it into something completely fresh.
So that was Maria Somerville, the Luster remixes. My first choice for this month is an album it's actually a collaborative album, and it's from the harpist Mary Lattimore and the, I guess, kind of choral synth player, singer, Julianna Barwick. The album is called Tragic Magic. It was actually all recorded in Paris over the course of a 9 days, I think. So produced by Trevor Spencer, who's done some stuff with Fleet Foxes and Beach House before. So it was all, the main thing about this record is that, okay, it was a short amount of time, but they had access to the Museum de la Musique's instrument collection. So a lot of the harps and analog synths used are drawn from that collection of music. And it's just like that, really. I don't know if you're familiar with Julianna Barwick and Mary Lattimore. Like, they're kind of both ambient and choral, but they have their own vibe. And when they meet here, I feel like it's a really lovely meeting of their both worlds, and it kind of is very transportive. So I'll play a couple of bits from the album Tragic Magic. This is a song called The Four Sleeping Princesses. And this was one of the first albums of the year. I was like, I really like this. A really lovely space to spend time in, and similarly, I mean, nearly every song is like long enough. I love the last song, Melted Moon, which came out before, and this is what gave me a heads up on this. But I really love the whole record. I love where it kind of lands and where the spaces you find yourself in, these kind of luminous sounds that occupy the song. So here's a song called Stardust. So that's Stardust, Julianna Barwick and Mary Lattimore. I've been actually listening to a lot to the Air Virgin Suicides album, and so there's kind of it reminds me of that a little bit as well. So
I've been back on that buzz too, and that's exactly what it gives me. That would have been one of my choices, but you beat me to it.
Okay, all right. Okay, up next from yourself.
Okay, so my second choice was Ailbhe Reddy's new album Kiss Big, which just came out. I think it came out on the 30th, the last Friday of January. Last Friday. So it just
quite a busy 30th of January, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so a lot of stuff came out on last Friday that I'm still getting into. Some of it is also here for me as well. So Ailbhe Reddy, third album, Kiss Big. Tell me more.
Yeah, so this is primarily a breakup album, and I think you can hear that as soon as you start listening to it, to be honest. I think that's kind of a universal thing we've all been through. I think everyone will recognize it in some way. And it was written between Dublin, London, New York, and I've read Donegal as well, which is interesting. You can definitely pick up on that in it. There's mentions of New York, there's mentions of places, but it's not your typical downtrodden breakup album. It kind of lacks that punch of negative intensity, and instead it's kind of this more uplifting, kind of empowering, nearly hopeful kind of approach to it. And it's nearly reminiscent of the likes of Robin or even the Blue Nile at times, with that sort of electro pop and synth pop feel. It's a really, really refreshing, just a really all round really good listen to.
Yeah, Ailbhe is a previous guest of this Best of the Month podcast in September, I think, last year. And so we knew the album was coming. And yeah, this is a follow up to Endless Affair in 2023. And yeah, I really like this a lot. I think perhaps Donegal is the connection there is Tommy McLaughlin, which he usually records up in Attica Studios. So I believe that's probably the Donegal connection there. So you have picked Graceful Swimmer first. That is a song featuring May Kay on backing vocals. Let's have a listen.
The joke when you were lying in the sand, I think of all the space you need and metal in your teeth. I could always see when you laughed at me. Early riser, graceful swimmer, delicate kid. We were beginners, so divers, soft speaker when we were. So divers, soft speaker when we were.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of that kind of electronic flourishes, those undertones that are in this record. I think there's like a sharp confidence as well, I think, to the songwriting this time around.
Yeah.
That I can't quite put my finger on, but that's what I feel. I just feel like the songwriting is more is sharper, it's more fully realized than maybe before.
I think it's really interesting. It's kind of like swimming as a metaphor, and I can't quite work out what it's a metaphor for, but it kind of moves you with it then as well. You're kind of in that sort of swimming, that sort of bobbing rhythm. And it just, it feels weirdly nostalgic. It feels very reminiscent of, like, I was thinking like Brandon Flowers, the Blue Nile, Robin, like all those sort of like, well, Blue Nile aren't 2010s, but that's sort of like 2010s electro pop kind of. And but it's very on the nose though as well, without deviating away from like the subject matter. It kind of, I don't know, it just handles it very gracefully.
I love the closing track, the kind of monologue there from the Sarah Kane's play, Touching Love. Just very much a different kind of experience to hear from Ailbhe. I'll just play a bit of that now to give you a flavour.
Now I want to play hide and seek and give you my clothes and tell you I like your shoes and hold your hand and go for a meal and not mind when you eat my food and meet you at Rudy's and talk about the day and type your letters and carry your boxes and laugh at your paranoia and give you tapes you don't listen to and watch great films and watch terrible films and complain about the radio and take pictures of you sleeping and get up to fetch you tea.
I won't play too much of it because it's a nice closer to the album, but what I do like about it, I think there was quite a lot of records in the last few years that were using voice notes. That's decidedly not a voice note, and I like that. And I think, Ailbhe, your career as an audiobook reader, announcer, it could be coming, and actually it's something that Ailbhe will possibly do because she has a novel on the way as well. So that's something that is potentially coming out this year. Hear more about that, hopefully. The other song you picked was That Girl. Let's play a little bit of that and then you can tell me what you
First met, your hands on my face and my shaking leg. That's not love. I'm still that girl that you knew. That's not love. I'm still that girl that you knew. Each teeth coffee, I'm underneath. Each teeth coffee.
that is That Girl from the record from Ailbhe Reddy's Kiss Big. You picked that one?
Why? I think really it's just lyrically it's great. You just played the line there, the chorus, where it goes bleach teeth, crow's feet, I'm underneath. Like, just the flow of that is really, really nice. But also just the flow of the sound in general, it kind of just builds and kind of waves, and it kind of comes to this conclusion at the end, which kind of, and I'm not really a Florence and the Machine fan, but it kind of has this level of Florence and the Machine euphoria at it. It comes to this big conclusion, and it's addictive. It's been stuck in my head for days since I heard it. I was on to one of my friends this morning too, and I was listening to the album again, and I sent it to her, and I thought, this is very, very you. And she came back with the exact same favorite song. So it just really stands out amongst all of them, to be honest. And I think it's just that real, it's like euphoria. Like, you're still the same person. You're no different than you were. You look different. Like, again, I think it's experiences we've all been through, and it doesn't deviate away from that at all. It really just hits it all on the nose, but makes it so, like, it's such a positive aspect of life, really, like, to learn and love over and over again.
Ailbhe says of this song, it's a study in how love shifts shape over time, how we start seeing each other less tenderly and forget what we once adored. Inspired partly by Fleischman is in Trouble, it reflects on memory time and how impossible it is to stay the same person inside a long love. Have you seen Fleischman is in Trouble? It's like a TV show with Jesse Eisenberg, Claire Danes, about, what is it about? It's about a couple who are estranged over time. That's essentially what it's about. So it is kind of, does reflect well on the album's themes as well, for sure. So yeah, that's Ailbhe Reddy, Kiss Big. The album is out now, and Ailbhe is doing a Button Factory show in May as well, so you can go see her live then as well. So if I was to pick a single record that is my favorite of the month, it would be this record. A band I previously didn't know anything about until I just every Friday I go through the lists of new releases and pick out stuff that interests me, stuff I know already, something that sort of sounds interesting to me. But this was one of my first pulls of the month. It was a band called Winged Wheel. They're an experimental rock band from, they're from America all over, really. So Detroit is mentioned most often, but they're not really. The band started as kind of a file sharing, record sharing project between different musicians from different bands. Those musicians include Whitney Johnson, who plays in Circuits de Yo, Corey Plump from Spray Paint, who is also the co-owner of the venue Tubbies, Matthew J. Rolland, the solo guitar wizard and half of Powers, and Roland Jewett, Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth, Lonnie Slack, Fred Thomas from Idle Ray. So all sorts of different bands coalescing here on this Winged record. I think they have become a bit more of a going concern recently, and I can hear why. This record is called Desert So Green. It's their third record. It was recorded in Chicago, and definitely drawing on the sounds of the moment. That I'm hearing a lot of American Midwest emo references at the moment. Yeah. And we have another one here, definitely. It's got shoegazy, post-rock stuff, kind of krautrock, commish stuff as well, experimental. It feels like quite an improvised record, even though it isn't necessarily that. But let's have a listen now to a couple of tracks from the record. This first one is called Beautiful Holy Jewel Home. And I think there's various different sounds here, but it's kind of, the whole album has this smudgy, distant effect to it that keeps me coming back to it. Yeah, there's quite a lot of kind of 90s throwback kind of references at the moment. That band who are playing here this weekend, they're Gutting a Body of Water. I really like what they're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing them on Saturday. And at various points on this record, I think I can hear the likes of Slint, Does the song sound like Just Mustard as well? The bit of Godspeed You Black
Yeah, I
Emperor.
can hear that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
a restrained sound. I think it's. I'm not familiar with the earlier records, but I'll play a bit of this other. The Sweet Goes Quiet from the record again. Slightly different vibe again. Let's have a listen.
You have been listening to a preview of the Niler 9 podcast. To hear this episode in full, sign up to patreon.com/Niler9.